Neil, we'll quickly look back last week at the great victory really against Gateshead. How pleased were you to be able to see that game over the line in relative comfort towards the back end of that game?
Yeah, it always feels relatively comfort when you get the second. I think the problem was in the games before we just never got a second goal. You know, in the Ebbsfleet game we had a couple of chances. I know they had a little bit more of the ball, but we had a couple of great chances. In the Gateshead away game, I thought we lacked a little bit of quality. I thought we was very good without the ball, but lacked the quality with the ball in the first game. So, you know, 1-0 is always a difficult scoreline. You only need that one moment, and both of them are, you know, it's a short corner and we haven't quite got to a good finish at the Gateshead game, but the goalkeeper coming up and scoring at Ebbsfleet, you know, they would. I think the second goal kills the game off, but that's hence why we've been trying. Obviously, Depot coming back's great, but we've been trying to add firepower because every team needs goals.
And you've talked a bit to us in the past about stats. I saw a ridiculous stat ahead of the game on New Year's Day that if games had finished at half time this season, I don't know if you're aware of this, Yorkshire were third at the table.
Wow, brilliant. Can we just play 45 minutes from now on then?
But well, why do you think that's been such a big issue this year?
So, this is me surmising. I'm not the be all and the end all that know all the answers. My suggestion would be early in the season there was probably a fitness element there because I know what I walked into. I would say as we've gone down the line, perhaps there could be an anxiety issue there and possibly an inability to kill games off. But if you look at our record defensively, I think, let's go back 6 weeks, we had the worst defensive record in the league. Well, you're not going to hold on to leads if you got, because that means you don't keep clean sheets, and we haven't exactly been free scoring. So put the two together, and whether one team takes the lead or one team doesn't, it's an inevitability that we're not going to see out games. The
anxiety thing, do you think that is a real factor then? It could have got into the players' heads. They must have realised in the back of their minds, if maybe not knowing the exact stats, they must have felt, well, we've thrown away a lead here quite a few times.
Yeah, possibly, but also there's, you know, the lads who have played and been on the pitch, they're desperate to do well, and they know that they haven't done well enough in the early stages, and they feel, everyone feels like we've got a little bit better. But I think it's just when you don't win games, what have we won, 6, 7, I don't know. When you don't win games, it becomes hard to win games. It's like, and I've had it the opposite, you know, Solihull and at Notts. When you win games, you go 1-0 down, you think you're going to win. You know, you're just used to it. It's programmed into you. Whereas here, I think there's an element of, oh, we're 1-0 up, let's hold on to this lead, and it doesn't work that way. And perhaps because we haven't had the enough goals in us to go and get the second and be aggressive with it. It might, I don't know, there's a number of reasons it could be. I don't think it's fitness, because I think we scored a hell of a lot of 90-something minute goals as well, so I don't think it's fitness anymore, but perhaps it's that sort of inability or momentum, knowing that you can win games regularly.
So you now go to Boreham Wood, who were the team you came up against in your first game here. How do you think your team has changed, and has anything surprised you in the sort of the 4 months between then and now?
Nothing surprises you in football, I can assure you. I think that game, I spent 2 days trying to get some messages across on giving them a bit of structure to the way they played. I think they showed that for 25 minutes, and then I think from then on in it was back to you know, the old revert to type. I think I learnt in that 4 months that we had a team that struggled defensively, and then you looked at the top end and we only had Lenny and Deeps as our only 2 recognised strikers, and as soon as Deeps got injured it became a tough couple of months, working really with one striker for a lot of it. So what I've learnt is that I think we've done a hell of a good job, given all of them circumstances, with Dan Batty, with Deeps, with you know, the defensive record we had, maybe some fitness elements, confidence, to sort of dig in and make York a reasonably competitive team.
Yeah, you're right. You're not losing games. You haven't been losing games, and the defence it does look a lot stronger than it did do earlier in the season.
Yeah, and you know, I'm not going to apologise for that. I remember years and years ago when I was at Wimbledon, I had in an end of season meet the manager. I had a guy sort of talk questions about how we'd played that season in particular, and that he felt that we hadn't attacked teams enough, etc., etc. And I held my hands up. I said, you know what, you're right. I said, we missed out on 2 strikers in the deadline. I said, I didn't think we had enough firepower, so I had to make us as hard to beat as I could, because otherwise we'd be back in League 2, and we've just worked really hard to get promoted to League 1. And the guy sort of, oh, okay, fair enough. And I think sometimes it is that you look and go, my job's to make sure this club don't get relegated. And I don't watch us play and go, oh, this is how I like to see my team, but I'm watching us play and go, I think we're in games. And early season, I didn't think we was. So that's my job initially. And if we can pick up points and get ourselves where we want to be, we can grow from there.
Because you've drawn more games, I think, than anyone else in the division. You regularly hear it's actually the points that kill you because you stop your winning games. But you look at the overall record now, and I think one team in the top eight's conceded more than you've conceded. You've got decent amount of goals now compared to lots of the other teams in mid-table. So you have turned things around, and that's probably the most sensible way of doing it, is starting at the back.
It has to be. I think Sam Allardyce has made a lot more money than me doing it. I've said before, I think I said quite early on, you probably won't see my teams play the way they want to just yet, because anyone can go in. People talk about the Spurs manager, who I think is brilliant, has gone in and he's had a pre-season and a sort of clean slate to go and implement his style over an 8-week period. I've come into a team lacking confidence, lack of cohesion, lack of whatever team spirit. It's very difficult to go, we're going to open up and play when you haven't got them players necessarily to do it, and the team lacks a lot of confidence and is used to losing games. So I cottoned on quite quick. I might have to just tinker with how I do this, and I'm satisfied with what we've done, but you can't rest on our laurels. There's a lot of good teams around there, and I keep looking up and down the league, and I do a lot of work looking at the opposition and the teams and the league, and I think some will strengthen, and I look and go, this is going to go to the wire. This is going to be awfully tough. So we've just got to keep going and hopefully use a little bit of momentum we've got and take it on. And this is, like you say, the right time to go. Let's add a player. Try and add a couple of players where everyone goes, oh, wow, we're half decent now.
And that player you've added so far is Billy Chadwick. Tell us a little bit about him and what attracted you to him.
Well, a number of things. It's really weird. We've got a new data analysis guy, and we do a lot of work on recruitment now. And I'm massively into the data. I used it a lot in Notts County. They've got a brilliant model there. So it is the way forward in football, but it's got to be paired up in a process with eyes, with communication, with loads of things. So we was looking at the time for something different in the front line, someone with really clever movement who could play on the shoulder and run in behind. And Billy kept coming out quite high, and data analysis put him into me, and I was like, Billy Chadwick, I'm sure he played as an 8 when he was at Boston. Because I remember watching him and thinking what a good player he was. So I started going for it, and he did. He played as an 8 as Boston, but he is a 9, and actually he's probably best suited to somewhere in the middle, which is a 10. So he's got all these options. So then we start watching him, and I went and watched him play when I watched Gateshead and Rochdale, and I thought, wow, when you watch people live, you can watch him off the ball, and I thought, wow, his movement's exceptional. And he's so comfortable on the ball, and the way he takes the ball like a 10. He's different to Depot, he's different to Will Davis, different to Lenny. He really does take the ball as a 10, and the more I watched of him, the more we looked at the data was screaming, wow, this player's a good player in every way, and my eyes were telling me the same. So we got talking to Stockport quite early, and obviously didn't really look that far ahead when we realised we were playing Gateshead twice over Christmas.
So when did he actually find out that there could be something in the offing?
I think the conversations happened. Obviously, you have to start conversations with someone like Stockport and say, is that something you'd consider doing in January? Because obviously they're looking now potentially going League One. You speak to the agent, would the player be interested? You kind of get them conversations going, and if both of them are something that looks right, then that's where it starts. That's when Billy knows of the interest. I think it was probably quite awkward for him knowing it and playing against us at the same time.
Well, that was going to be my next question. What does it say about him then as a football player that it appeared to everyone looking in from the outside, he's been able to put that to the back of his mind and not let it affect him in those 2 games against you?
Yeah, brilliant on his integrity. You have to play with integrity, and I think the staff at Gateshead, it's a brilliant football club, and the staff are brilliant. So I think they've handled him well. I think they had an idea, they'd spoke to Stockport of what was going on. And they handled him well, and I think that he handled himself well. I think when their manager was in my office after the game on New Year's Day, and he came to say goodbye to him, I think that was an awkward moment for him, because he got a bit of ribbing from the staff saying, which one you calling gaffer?
Yeah, an unusual situation, I suppose. Your team then for Sunday, as it is everyone okay? Is Depot no ill effects from starting the game the other day?
No, we've got obviously we've had quite a bit of illness in the camp. So Crooks, he's had a couple of days ill. Ryan Fallowfield played with a bit of a groin strain, so we've had to leave him off for quite a bit of the week. Cedric Main's been ill. We was hoping he'd be in with us Monday here. out on the pitch of the players, but he's been ill. He's only just trained today, so that kind of makes it a little bit harder for him. Maz and Ducky have sort of still, we've had to sort of integrate them back in because they were very wheezy and chesty. So we've had a lot of that, but injury-wise, it's been reasonably okay since the game.
You mentioned Cedric and Finley, who've obviously come back now from their loans. Are they immediately part of your first team squad, or for a couple of weeks? I know you said Cedric's been ill. Are you wanting to have a look at them for a couple of weeks first before you decide what's the best move for them?
I think a bit of both. I think in Finn's case, he's trained during the week, so Finn will travel with the squad. We're taking a 19-man squad tomorrow. David Stockdale hurt his thumb in training, so he's a bit sore, but he'll come with us anyway. But we'll take 3 goalies and 16 outfield, and we'll take a squad. I don't want to learn from the mistakes of when we had 4 subs before. So we'll take a group. Finn will be part of that. Cedric probably just needs next week because we've got 9 days between games. And I've pulled him and said to him, look, I'm looking at you now, and these 9 days, the hard part is he as fit as the rest of the group because of the full-time training they've had compared to Blythe. So we've got to assess all that in a week, but he's certainly got qualities that you might want to use in the squad for sure.
And I remember when we came down to the open training session ahead of the Wigan FA Cup game, we saw Depot doing a few runs at the side of the pitch, and you explained what the situation was there. We saw Dan Batty again on New Year's Day doing the same. How far off any sort of return is he?
Yeah, no, Dan's on a long-term programme now, so we've sort of finally identified what he needs to do. We've put a programme in place, and it's almost like a 5-week programme. So when you look at Dan Batty, I would fully expect Dan Batty would be potentially, if nothing goes wrong, he could join in full training maybe early to mid-Feb. And then you've got full training, and how many weeks do you really need to get him properly up to speed? So, could we get 2.5 months out of him at the end of the season if everything went well, potentially? So that's where he is.
And the latest on any further new signings?
Yeah, we're working on them. It's not going to be an influx of loads. We kind of looked in this window, obviously Greeny and Luke Daly, they both had chest infections as well. They're still poorly now, but they've both gone back to their clubs. We are looking at 1 or 2 players, but January's we only really we identified 3, maybe if other players went out 4, and that was all we was looking at. And obviously we got Billy in, so there might be 1 or 2 others but we're looking for quality. If it's permanent, they've got to be ones they can go that way with us. If it's loans, then obviously it's slightly different.
Until you get one through the door, is left back still a little bit of a concern in case you pick up an injury?
Yeah, absolutely. Crooksy's back, but we all think Crooksy's a better centre half. But he can fill in there, and obviously Thierry's a young lad learning his trade, so absolutely that's a position that we still want to strengthen. Do
you see a lot of potential with Thierry, especially going forward?
Yeah, we listen. Me and Thierry have been doing loads of work. There's, as an athlete, as a machine. If I could go back and put my body into his, or my football brain and legs into his body, I'd have played for England, because as an athlete he's certainly got everything. But you've got to remember he's 20. He's getting his first kind of little run of games, and he's come off in quite a few games with niggles and injuries and stuff. So it's still that. It's hard mentally, the mental strength to get through games of football. That's where people like your Fallowfields and your people that know how to do it, you can rely on your Woodyards, you can rely on. But Thierry's still part of that learning process. So he has got loads of potential. We're doing loads of work at the moment with him, with his different range of crossing abilities, so he can go on the outside as well as come on the inside, and obviously as well as he's defending.
And Ethan Henderson's he now left the football club?
Ethan is no longer at the football club, yeah.
Okay. Your thoughts then on this Boreham Wood game being moved at short notice? Is that something generally you would agree to? Because I know quite a few fans have been put out by the short notice, only 3 weeks. I know we understand why it's been moved, but general, what do you think of that move?
I don't really feel like I've ever got to say. I think if it comes down to TNT wanting to move it to put us on telly, I think number 1, the exposure is good for the football club, and number 2, I'm not sure as part of the league rules whether we can reject that anyway. So it's one of them. It's out of my control. So I just go, right, okay, look at the schedule. How would we work back from that game, and what do we change, and go from there. So obviously I feel sorry for any fans that it puts out, because they're the bedrock of every football club.
How's it affected your schedule? What have you had to change if it was going to be on a Saturday?
Yeah, I always work back from games. So you go, right, we want to have 2 days training prior to that game, so we can get messages across, match prep, travel on that day, etc. and then you kind of look at where you need a day off, and then you look at the game before, and you work that early bit out. So it's the simplest way to put a schedule together.
Does it affect next week as well or not?
No, not really. Those that we've got certain lads that we feel that it's weird. The boys that have played a lot, you've almost got to separate a little bit. The boys that have played a lot do need, because we've got coming up, they do need a bit of a deload because we've worked them quite hard over the last 4 or 5 weeks. The boys that haven't played much, that are coming back from injuries, need a little bit of an uplift when we get a chance to get them right up to match speed. So it's never kind of like the squad's going to do this. We always discuss every player individually and work out next week. So there might be, we have a game, get the youth team involved and get some 11v11 on the Monday for those that weren't in the squad, maybe were on the bench, need a little bit of a top up, and so on and so forth. So it's lots of planning goes in, because the last thing I want is to need somebody and them not be ready.
Finally, ask you about Boreham Wood. Probably not having the season that many people would expect. Everyone's used to them being in and out around the playoffs. They've struggled a bit this year, haven't they? What are you expecting from them tomorrow? I
know they've had a lot of injuries. They only had 3 on the bench over Christmas. Listen, Luke does a great job. Not easy circumstances. I always find Boreham Wood, when you've got a manager with so much know-how, I always find they always find a run. They know how to cope. They know they have bad times every now and then because budgets will dictate you're going to. But they'll always have a run. They'll always get things back when they get injuries back and they get things back. They'll go on a run and they'll end up with a run where they're unbeaten in 8, 9, 10 because Luke's capable of that. I just hope it. I think they're a couple unbeaten already. I hope it doesn't start Sunday.
Great, thank you.
Hi Neil. First of all, what's your relationship like with Luke Ardley?
Yeah, really good. Luke used to play not under me, but played for AFC Wimbledon. We played against him a few times, pre-season friendlies and that. So we generally, he rings me for advice about players. I ring him for advice about players. He's very studious, very knowledgeable. So we always have good chats. But I think I feel for him a bit because I actually think he's not gone under the radar. But when jobs do come available, I look at him and think, is that his next step? He's been at Boreham Wood a long time, and I feel like he's proven himself as a very, very good manager.
I just want to ask as well, because you mentioned it quite a lot, but after a match you'll go have a drink with the opposition team manager. Where's that sort of stem from? Is that just a personal preference of yours, or is it sort of ingrained into the football club?
When I was in the league, working in League 1, League 2, it was common. Very rarely did a manager not do it. When you come down to National League, it's less so. So I learned that when I come down with Notts a couple of times. I'd go to the manager's office and they'd have cleared off and you're like, oh, we're not having a drink. But there's so much to learn talking to other managers, and I always want to learn. So, there's some managers I get on that well with. I have them in for a coffee before the game because at 2:20 when they're out warming up, I'm bored. I've done all my work. So I have them in for a coffee and we have a coffee and we talk football, we talk about their club. And you soon realise that every club's got its problems, every club's got issues, every club that you don't get to hear about. And managers got different scenarios and it's great to pick up a manager's brains.
Yeah, looking at Boreham Wood, what sort of threat can they pose to York on Sunday?
I think they've just got threats, obviously Sousa can 1v1 dominate players and make things happen, and Love, as we saw here, he scored 2 goals, big powerful lad, and if you let him get on top of you can cause you problems. Marsh is proven at the level, scores goals. Tom Whelan I had at Solihull last season, a very industrious midfielder. I think he scored 4 in the last 5 or 6 games. So they've got big strong boys as well, and obviously Bush has been injured the last couple of games, but if Bush plays, then you throw the long throw in, and you add that into a problem. And they're good at playing at home. They know their pitch. They know they put it on you. Whenever you go to Boreham Wood, if you don't earn the right to play, they swamp you. And I've always found that with every team I've taken there. So we've got it's a different type of game because we played against 4 teams that want to totally play from the back, and total football. Boreham Wood will ask loads of different questions.
And you've seen Ollie Green and Luke Daly now left the club. Was there any consideration from you to try and extend those loans?
I think coming into January, obviously, number one, they were both really poorly, and I still think they're really poorly now, so it made no sense to rush into extending loans for players who we didn't think would be necessarily available for 2 or 3 weeks. And number two, with January coming, we was looking at, we've got a little bit more of an open marketplace now, that mid-season where people got beyond Christmas and people that might not have wanted to come might be willing to come now. It's that halfway point. So we thought, let's send them back and assess where we go now, and obviously we're working very hard on the recruitment side.
And Scott Barrow has now left the club for Darlington. What was the thinking behind that move?
Well, I mean, Scotty hasn't played, you know, for his sake, he needed to play, and like I say, it's a move that suits him. Obviously, he knows the manager well, and we wanted him. He's spent a long time trying to get back from his injury, and we've tried to help him with that. And we wanted him to play football and have something to look forward to. So when the move come, we got asked, and we said, yeah, we'll try and help facilitate it. And it was good for Scotty, it was good for Darlow, and it's good for us to get him out, because there's nothing worse for me seeing 6, 7, 8 players sitting there on a Saturday, not even in a squad.
Yeah, and George Sykes-Kenworthy is one of your first signings of the club, and he's got a lot of plaudits since he's been here. You think this is sort of a good example then of what sort of transfer business you can do then? Because a lot of fans seem to trust you with it so far.
Thank God for that. All that 10 years of experience is coming out. I don't want to make bad signings. So when we make a signing, there's all sorts of elements to it. There's value for money. And, you know, George Sykes-Kenworthy and Will Davis, 2 permanent signings we made. If I told you, not that I'm going to, but if I told you what we paid for them, and I told you what we're paying them, as far as, you know, where it compares in the thing, you'd be like, oh my God, that's unbelievable business. You know, and they're 2 hungry players who have gone away, done their work, come up through the ranks, and are desperate to go to a big club and be successful and push on and play in the league. So they kind of fit all the criteria. And it's the same with Billy. We feel the same about Billy and whoever else we bring in. We feel like that's going to be the sort of model we want to go for. And I don't want to have a bad signing. I want everyone that comes through the door for the fans to go, bloody hell, you know, that's another good signing, that's brilliant. So hopefully that's the start of many.
And how pleased are you with the impacts that Sykes-Kenworthy and Davis have made?
Really delighted. Davis is totally different to what we had, which we knew. I mean, he puts himself about. He's like he can play 9, 10. He likes to drop in. He likes to run hard. He likes to unsettle defenders. He can rough them up. He can run, and he's proven. He's 33 goals and then another 8 in 14, and he stepped up to this level. And he's in a team that, to be fair, hasn't had many goals in him over the last couple of months. He's stepped up and scored, I don't know, whatever, 2 in 5 or whatever. So he's kept that going. So yeah, excited to see what they can do going forward.
Yeah, and last one from me. Have you got a message for the supporters making the trip down to Boreham Wood on Sunday?
It's Sunday afternoon, isn't it? They can go down, have a kick off, have a roast dinner afterwards, make their plans, and yeah, Sunday afternoon be with the boys and get and support the boys. Listen, it's anyone that's been put out. Obviously, I'm sorry, I feel sorry for them, but hopefully the fans have been brilliant. Hopefully they continue to keep that going, because we're going to need them all the way till the end. You know, nothing's solved yet, and you know we've just had a reasonably okay competitive Christmas, and we need to kick on from that, and we need them.
Brilliant. That's all for me. Thank you very much.
Now, looking back to Gateshead, for me it was a bit like the end of the beginning. In other words, the players were finally starting to do what you wanted them to more often than not. Did you feel that?
I think it was easy, not easy, but it was easy because we knew how Gateshead were going to play. We'd set up to play against them in the away game, and I was kind of more pleased with what I got in the away game, because I didn't have hardly any time to work on that shape or that system or the way that the rotations Gateshead would have and how we'd deal with it. So then going into the second game, the only thing we had to think of is what might Gateshead change to cause us a problem, but the same principles applied. So the only bit then that I needed was, right, I didn't think we had enough of the ball or enough threat in the first game. How can we improve that? Obviously having Depot back helped, but then we did a little bit more on how our first 4 passes could be crucial to getting us chances, and I thought we did that bit really, really well.
There seemed to be a belief there. Obviously the first goal helped, but they seemed to be playing with more freedom.
Yeah, perhaps. I think I've said this before, when you know you've got goals in your team, it helps. So we can, nothing changes, we need to be defensively sound. But if you know that you've got 3, 4, 5 players in your team that can create, score goals, then that helps. And I feel like we haven't had that for a period of time, and we've just had to be as competitive as we am. But if we can start to add that, I think that will help with that confidence of, actually, you know, you look around the dressing room, you go, on his day, no one can handle him. He can do that. He's got that, you know, and that's what we're trying to create as we go forward.
Looking at the form guide, you and Boreham Wood both identical. Just 6 games, 10 points. What'll give you the edge on Sunday?
I think the most important thing we do on Sunday is earn the right to play, earn the right to get a foothold in the game, because every time I play Boreham Wood, if you don't match what they do well, and then get to play your own game, you end up playing their game. And I've had it even with Notts County. We was in Solihull with total football team, and we've come in at half time thinking, how on earth are we only 1-0 down? Because we've been bombarded with forward play and forward running, and so we've got to do that. I think that's the key to the game. It's a totally different game from Gateshead, totally different game plan, totally different everything. My job is what system shape, patterns of play, team style do we need to implicate to have our best chance of winning.
Pardon me. Talking of Billy Chadwick now, how long does it take you to assimilate a player like that into the team and get him playing how you want?
Can I tell you, at 5 o'clock on Sunday, I watch Billy train Wednesday, and I watch him train again today, and he's so smooth. He's such a good player. Knows where he is on the pitch. Knows how to takes the ball better than anyone. Like in tight areas. I'm hoping, other than, this is what I want you to do without the ball, and this is how I want you to play with one or two or whoever you're playing with. I'm hoping that the rest comes natural to him.
His talent, obviously, on the field is undoubted. How much, though, when you're looking at a player, does character matter as well and core values?
Yeah, I think that's massively the case, and even talking to the Gateshead guys after, one of the things Gateshead pride himself on is a good dressing room. No bad eggs, everyone buys in, everyone works together as a team, and Billy's been part of that, so they were very high in their praise of Billy, and they wanted to keep him. They tried to pull out all the stops to keep him at the club. That tells me we got the right character as well.
And with regards to the Boreham Wood game as well, how much has illness disrupted training?
With the game being moved?
How much has illness disrupted training?
Illness. It doesn't disrupt training, because you tweak whatever numbers you've got. If someone phones in sick in the morning and you look at it, you just have to adjust the numbers and what you're going to do with them numbers. We always, like I said, in every training session, we sit down, we look at what individuals need to get from the training session, physically, tactically or technically, and then what the group need to get from it. So Wednesday was a bit more generic, and then today was, because we're travelling tomorrow and training on the way, today was very, very orientated around the game. So we drop in as many messages with 11v11 stuff around the game today, so that tomorrow we can focus on the nitty-gritty throwing, set pieces, bits and bobs on top of what we've done today. So all it does is it questions your team selection. So if someone's been ill, talking about Cedric Main, if Cedric Main's been ill all week, does it push him back a bit as far as having a chance of being in the squad? Of course it does, because he's barely trained, and you've got to be thinking, well, is he ready? That's what it does, and that's what it will always do.
Thanks very much.
Happy New Year, Neil.
Thank you.
Are you feeling more positive as we start 2024 after picking up the points over Christmas?
Of course, you feel a bit more positive when you win games, or the team consistently, which I think we've done over a few games now, shows how competitive they can be. You feel even more positive if you can bring good players into the club. So there are two reasons to be positive. I've said to the lads now, we're going to go Saturday, Tuesday in a period soon. It's all about high performance. I've got to do my work behind the scenes. Me, the staff, Joe, the goalkeeping coach, does a lot of the analysis with us. We've got to prepare ahead of every game to make sure we know what team we're picking, how we're going to play, how we're going to approach the game. The players have got to stay focused to do it. So you do feel a little bit more positive, certainly getting yourself out of the relegation zone, but I'm not one of these that go singing and dancing and start looking up towards the playoffs or anything like that. I'm just like, points per game, let's keep chipping away, get past 50, 52, and then we can all take a deep breath and look forward.
You mentioned you can't influence matches on TV, but how much added pressure does that give you if it's on TV?
I don't think it gives us pressure. I mean, I thought we did a good performance at Woking on the telly. The other game was Halifax, was it? Halifax on the telly. We kept going till the end and come back. So I'm hoping it brings the best out of the boys. I hope they look and go, it's a chance to show where we're going. Doesn't always work that way, but yeah, TV, other than an interview before the game, I don't really focus on the fact that I'm on TV, other than I might put a bit more wax in my hair. I don't focus on the fact that I'm on the telly at all.
Right. How good did it feel to get 70 minutes out of Depot on New Year's Day?
Yeah, it's good. The sports scientist was looking at me after 60 saying, come on, you're going past your limit. Yeah, no, it was great. And I don't think, when you look at Dan Batty and Depot, two very good players, I don't think this football club's had them at any point anywhere near their best. And that sounds quite frightening for Depot because he's had a good season. But I think Depot had a really interrupted pre-season. When I came in, certainly I don't think his levels of fitness were anywhere near what I expect of my striker. But I've got to build him back to that slowly. And the same with Dan Batty. I think if we can get a full pre-season into them two, you'll have an even different animal going forward.
More options now up front with bringing in Billy Chadwick. That must be a massive relief.
Yeah, it was great. It was great to get it done. It was a deal. Obviously, I had worked on behind the scenes. The recruitment team, we all made the decision that he was the one we wanted to go for. His agent was brilliant in the deal. Stockport were brilliant in the deal, and obviously I feel sorry for Gateshead because they've lost a very good player that's going to be very hard to replace. But delighted with that, and then having Finn Barnes and Cedric Main back as options. All of a sudden, we have magnets on the board with all the players, and you have different colours for defenders, midfielders, strikers, and all of a sudden you look at the wingers, strikers, and you go, oh, that's a bit better. We've got a lot more to choose from there.
The penalty save against Gateshead just before half-time, how did that make you feel at half-time?
It's crucial. Team talk changes, doesn't it? We didn't want to draw another game. We was at home. We was going out not to just contain Gateshead. We had a game plan to win the game, and 1-1 puts them at ease and makes us feel that little bit more edgy about trying to win the game. So the whole momentum changes from it. And looking back, at first of all, it was just a really poor penalty. But when I look back, it's still a very good save. He's managed to get his foot to it. And it's two he's saved now, George. And when you look at the games, Maidenhead and that game, they've ended up resulting on bringing points to us.